So good evening everyone. I welcome you all for the 5 editorials of the week series. So this is the 11th edition of this series. In this edition we will be identifying the 5 important editorials which came in the Hindu in the last 1 week, and we will be discussing those editorials with respect to UPSC mains point of view. So already we have done 10 videos in this series and this is going to be the 11th video. So this initiative aims at helping you in retaining the stock points which you learned in the editorials. So let us go into the today's video. So in today's video, the first article which we are going to discuss is about the shifting trajectory of India's foreign policy. So this article is about the foreign policy shifts in the recent times with respect to the glowing closure of India-USA relations and the 2+2 meeting. And the second editorial is about the education policy. We all know government launched the new education policy recently, and it is going to discuss how it is affecting the federal relationship between the union government and state government with respect to the education. The third article is about the fixing the rules of economy. So this article talks about the labor productivity and the best model for the India's economic growth. That is going to be the labor intensive or capital intensive manufacturing sector. So it is going to give us the way forward for developing India's manufacturing sector and the labor issue. And the fourth editorial is about the weakening of the financial capacity of the state. With the various initiative of the union government, states financial capacities are getting weakened. And the last editorial is about the GST and the input tax credit system in the GST. So let us see all these 5 editorials. The first editorial for the day is about the shifting trajectory of the India's foreign policy. So this editorial is written by none other than M.K. Narayanan. M.K. Narayanan was our former national security advisor to the government of India. So he used to be the top security officer for the government, and he is talking about the foreign policy. So that is the authenticity of this editorial. So in this editorial, he is discussing about how how the recent alignment of the India and United States with respect to the signing of the foundational agreement. So India recently signed all the 4 foundational agreements of defense with the USA, and this growing alignment of India with the US and its various ramifications. So what are all the outcomes of signing of all these 4 defense? So it is not talking about the outcomes in the defense sector, but instead he is talking about the outcomes with respect to the entire India's foreign policy. So that is the first editorial. So let us go into the editorial. So India recently signed 4 important agreements. So all these 4 important agreements you have to study with respect to UPSC prelims point of view, and please note down these abbreviations also. These abbreviations you have to write again when you are writing a mains answer. So we should not be thinking the spelling. It is BECA, BECA, GSOMIA, LEMOA, and COMCASA. So we have to remember all these 4 abbreviations. The first agreement which India and USA signed was GSOMIA. So this GSOMIA is nothing but General Security of Military Information Agreement, and it was signed in 2002. So it was signed by then NDA-1 government. So it aims at sharing the military intelligence with respect to both government and the government and the public sector enterprises and the US defense industries. LEMOA is nothing but Logistic Exchange and Memorandum of Agreement. So this agreement enables us for sharing our logistics and the sharing our logistics and the port infrastructure with each other's navy. So each other's navy can use each other's port infrastructure whenever they are in some military exercises or any port of calls or any disaster relief operation, etc. The third one, it was signed in 2016. The third one which we signed was COMCASA. We signed it in 2018. It is for utilizing the high-end communication and cryptographic technology of the United Nations when we are procuring the defense equipments. And the final one which we signed was signed recently in 2020. So please remember the years. So it was actually signed in 2002, 2016, 2018, and 2020. If you could note, after 2002 we didn't sign for the next 14 years during the UPA government, and let us understand why UPA didn't sign it also. Okay. So again, in NDA-2 only we signed the rest of the agreement. So with this signing of this agreement, what the Secretary of the State said was, India will be the most consequential partner for US in the Indo-Pacific this century. So what he is telling, by signing these 4 agreements, India is going to emerge as one of the important defense partner for the United Nations, and it is going to create very important strategic consequences for the India and United Nations with respect to the Indo-Pacific region. So he is telling that India is a consequential partner. So you have to note down these terminologies, and we have to write such words when we are writing an answer with respect to India and USA. If you could note, last year also we had a question with respect to India and USA relation in the mains examination. When you're writing such questions, you have to write these words. When you're writing about Indians foreign policy answers, everyone will know the points to write the good answers. But how you are going to differentiate your answer with the other's answer is by using such keywords like consequential partner. So these keywords are going to fetch you that additional marks which are aiming in the main examination. So this was the quote given by given by the Secretary of State of the United Nations. So why UPA government didn't sign? See, after signing in 2002, we didn't sign it in between because UPA government was thinking that it will compromise India's security and independence. So because of that only, in order to not compromise India's security and independence, and the UPA government also feared that India will lose its strategic autonomy if it is going to sign such agreements with the USA. So we already discussed about strategic autonomy in the previous editorial. Strategic autonomy means taking decision with only India's interest in mind, and the not aligning with any other partner. So not aligning our Indian foreign policy with any other nations. We will always be taking our foreign policy decisions independently. So that is called a strategic autonomy. So the previous government feared that India will lose the strategic autonomy and it will compromise India's security and independence. But the new government which signed these agreements in 2016, 18 and 20 says that, 20 says that they are having India specific safeguards in the agreement. So if you could see, the name of the agreements were changed when India signed it. Actually, USA didn't have such names. They changed the name in order to ensure that India is having certain India specific safeguards. Like LEMOA, logistic exchange agreement, it is called only LEA. But they changed this LEA into LEMOA for India, which means that they are having certain India specific safeguards in it. So what the author is telling, that even though we signed this agreement, nothing is going to come for free. See, they are telling that by signing BECA, they are going to exchange the military information. So they are going to exchange the intelligence information. Even though they are going to exchange all this information, nothing is going to come for free. Anything in the strategic world is going to come with some price tag. So India will have to pay it for it if they are going to sign. So that is the first warning which the author is giving. So we can note down this terminology. So India specific safeguards and price tags, these are all the words which have to be noted. But author also telling that now India is not having any other option other than signing these agreements, because this is a pragmatic one. So in the present global order, so entire world is in a global disorder. Our entire world order has become a global disorder now. So when the entire world is in a global disorder, by disorder what he's meaning, at one side there is a US-China trade war which is going on. And on the other side, we are having an unpredictable president. Luckily, he is not going to be the president anymore. So that is creating a disorder. On another side, we are having COVID-19 introduced economic slowdown. On the other side, UK is leaving the Brexit. So likewise, there is a very big global disorder going on. So in this global disorder, this agreement is nothing but a pragmatic one, because it is going to help India. So at this time, we should not be ideologically rigid. We should be ideologically agnostic. So what the author is telling, that we have to be ideologically agnostic. Agnostic means not having firm things. Say agnosticism with respect to religion means what? Atheism means not believing in God. Theism means believing in God. Agnostic is a person who is not bothered about whether God is there or not. So he is still doubtful whether God is there or not. So the same thing ideologically we have to bring in with respect to our foreign policy also. We have to be ideologically agnostic. At this point of time, it should be realistic. That is, we should always be focusing on India specific foreign agreement or India specific diplomatic engagements, or whichever engagement which is going to benefit India without having any strong ideological linkages with our foreign policy decisions. So that is what the author is telling. This is being ideologically agnostic is very important for India's foreign policy at this point of time. So in the world which is in the global disorder. So note down this word again. Ideologically agnostic attitude will help India when the entire world is in a global disorder. So there was a question in 2017 mains also, when the world is facing the trade war, this world is facing a very huge big trade war. So how India can handle strategically in this time. So such kind of questions can also be asked. So that is one thing which we have to note. Again, our foreign policy, our external affairs minister said on quote, since global fluidity is so pervasive, The global fluidity means the world is very fluid now. Global fluidity is so pervasive. India must address this challenge by forging more contemporary ties on every major account. So in each and every area, in the contemporary times, and the global fluidity is so pervasive, it is coming into each and every aspect of the governance. India should make some strong decision with respect to foreign policy and make strong alignment with respect to foreign policy. That's why we are aligning with USA. So this can also be given as a mains question. They can give like this: since global fluidity is so pervasive, India must address this challenge by forging more contemporary ties on every major account. Discuss. So likewise, UPSC they have given Dr. Manmohan Singh's statement as a quote, and they have asked us to discuss. They have given a lot of statements of the former diplomats or the Supreme Court judgments, judges' quotes in our question, and they have asked us to discuss or explain. So such kind of questions are also can be coming in the mains examination. So yeah, another foreign policy shift. So see, one foreign policy shift is that India earlier they were maintaining strategic autonomy. They were not aligning with anyone. We followed non-alignment. Now we are aligning closely with USA. So becoming closer with USA is a one shifting trajectory of the Indian foreign policy. Another shifting trajectory of Indian foreign policy was India always avoided to be anti-China. India was never explicitly anti-China. India never wanted to be anti-China explicitly, even though we didn't have good relationship. So always it avoided being anti-China because our economic relations are so forced. Last week also we discussed how the economic relationship are forced here. So it is very strong. So India always avoided this anti-China posture in the past, and India also avoided taking Quad seriously. In 2008 itself, they decided to start a Quad, but India never took it seriously because it would turn anti-China. India also denied the joining of Australia in the Malabar exercise last time. Last time when we did the Malabar exercise, Australia requested that it wanted to join it, but India denied it because if Australia joins it, it will be purely becoming a anti-China initiative, and it will be irritating China, and it will be affecting the relationship further. So India always avoided to have this anti-China image. And if you could see, even after one of the very big standoff which we had in 2017, that is Doklam standoff, even after the Doklam standoff, we conducted one of the two important foreign policy arrangements with the China. So we had this Wuhan Spirit meeting where Indian Prime Minister went to Wuhan and met the Xi Jinping there, and Xi Jinping visited back to India and Mamalapuram. It was called as Chennai Connect. In Wuhan Spirit and Chennai Connect, we we had a close discussion with China, and we discussed unofficially with China with respect to foreign policy initiatives. We never wanted to be anti-China. We tried to improve the relationship with China. But now what is happening because of this, after the tensions in the line of actual control with respect to border dispute, and after signing of these 4 agreements with the USA, we are becoming very closer to USA, and we are strongly established the Quad recently, and we also we are also conducting Malabar exercise. Even today, the Malabar exercise is going on with all the 4 Quad members. So this is strongly signaling an anti-China tone with respect to India's foreign policy, and this is further going to deteriorate the India-China relationship. That is what the author is telling. Earlier, we avoided the anti-China posture explicitly. Now we are moving, and we are showing that we are anti-China. So that is another strategic shift in our foreign policy. And the next one. Next one is about the attention to neighborhood. India, see, when Prime Minister Modi when Prime Minister Modi talked about his foreign policy in 2014, he said that we are going to follow the neighborhood first policy. Neighborhood is first for us. Then he talked about Act East policy. So India and its neighborhood are first for us. After this neighborhood, we are going to Act East. That is in the Southeast Asia. Now, what is happening? Instead of focusing that, now our entire foreign policy has shifted from our neighborhood to some 4 dispersed nations, that is Japan, Australia, and USA, which are nowhere close to India with respect to neighborhood or any periphery. So we are moving from neighborhood to Quad. So since we are focusing more on Quad, we are focusing more. We are diverting our foreign policy more towards anti-China. We are losing our stronghold in our neighborhood. We already discussed about how India's neighborhood policy is being altered in the second editorial video, which we discussed long back. So please see that video on how India's foreign policy is affecting with respect to neighborhood. We discussed it earlier, so note it down. So, like for example, our relationship with Nepal is altering because of the border dispute. With respect to Pakistan, it is never ending. With Bangladesh, the citizenship amendment bill has created a further problem. With Sri Lanka, the new government of Rajapaksa is more pro-China. With respect to Maldives is becoming closer to China, and Maldives also recently they signed a defense agreement with USA. Maldives is signing a defense agreement with USA, which is allowing. So by this, what is happening? Outside nations. So at one side, China was entering into the Indian Ocean realm, and it was getting closer with the countries in the Indian Ocean. Now what is happening? USA is entering into the Indian Ocean realm, and they are getting closer with the countries there. So actually, Indian Ocean belongs to India. So, Surya will also tell in Singham 3 movie. India Perungadal, India than. So when Indian Ocean is belonging to India, India should have a stronghold there. But now India is allowing the other foreign inroads into the Indian Ocean region. So that is another very big shift which is happening, which India should focus now. In Afghanistan also, what is happening? The entire see, India invested a lot in Afghanistan, but now recently when they are negotiating the peace deal with the Taliban, India was totally anti-Taliban earlier. Now the same Afghanistan government and USA are negotiating with the Taliban on table. So in that negotiation, they invited China and Russia as the major partners, and India was called just as the dialogue partner. So India wasn't called as a dialogue partner. India just was called as an associate partner. So that is, there is a shift happening with respect to Afghanistan. And you know, in recently in West Asia, there is a huge confusion now because of the US-Iran issue at one side. So US-Iran issue is creating a global disorder. So what is this global disorder? US-Iran issue is creating one disorder. Then recently, the Arab nations, they are starting to sign deal with the Israel. Arabs and Israelis were considered to be enemies for the past 1 century. Now they both are signing a peace deal. UAE signed a peace deal and Bahrain signed. So likewise, peace deals are being signed there. This is creating one shift there. And Saudi Arabia's voice is reducing recently, and Turkey's voice is rising. So Saudi Arabia, as the representative of the Arabic world, is falling, and the Turkey's voice is rising there. So this is one strategic shift. So many strategic shifts are happening, and India has to realign its policy there. And also, India is not giving importance to NAM. So this is the right time to bring back the NAM and bring back the non-aligned movement and to establish India's stronghold there. But we have avoiding the non-aligned movement also. So these are all the various things which are changing in the recent times. If you could note, 2 years back, India was focusing on Shanghai Cooperation Organization, where China and Russia were the main members. Now totally India is becoming anti-China and moving closer to USA. If India is moving closer to USA, what will happen? India is going closer to USA. Both China and Russia are considered to be not having good relationship with USA, and they'll consider India as they are already considering USA as their enemy. If India is going closer to USA, it will be very difficult for India to maintain its relationship in the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, where both Russia and China are taking the lead. Okay, so India was focusing on SCO 2 years back. Now totally our foreign policy is shifting with respect to USA. So that is going to create a confusion, and also this will further deteriorate India-Russia relation. India is considered to be, so author also mentioned that Russia is the staple for the India's foreign policy. Staple of India's foreign policy means that is Russia was considered to be the best foreign partner. Now our strategic shift to USA is deteriorating the India-Russia relationship. So all these issues is creating a very big shift with respect to the strategic relationship in India's foreign policy map. So India should take note of all these issues, and India should travel so that India's interests are best protected. So note down these keywords: ideologically agnostic attitude. They can also give this statement in the mains examination. India will become the most consequential partner for the USA in the Indo-Pacific century. Discuss. So that can also be a question. So like that only UPSC is asking question. So we can write this answer by taking points from all the editorials we discussed about India Pacific. We already discussed 2 editorials with respect to India Pacific, and this is one with respect to India US relationship and its ramification. And we also discussed about an editorial with neighborhood policy. See all those editorials together and note down the points together, and you will have a best answer for any question which is being asked with respect to the foreign policy. The second editorial which we are going to discuss now is about the education and the shift with respect to the federalism. Okay, so education, the nation and the states. How education is shifting the relationship between the union government and the state government. So this editorial is written by Mr. Krishna Kumar. Mr. Krishna Kumar was former director of the NCRT. So he was former director of NCRT. So he's an insider who is writing. So that is the authenticity of this editorial. So in this editorial, the author is talking, first he's talking about the evolution of India's federalism with respect to education sphere. See, already we discussed an editorial with respect to federalism in governor and the chief minister relationship with respect to Delhi. Then we discussed an editorial with respect to fiscal policy in the federalism. Then we discussed about the farm laws. So now we are discussing another editorial with respect to federalism in the education sector. If you imagine if you are getting an essay with respect to federalism, you will have hell lot of points if you have just followed this editorials of the week initiative. We are having all the points for federalism. Even you can write an essay about federalism with all the editorials which we discussed now in the recent past. So that's why I'm telling you to revise it often. So we are going to discuss the evolution of federalism with respect to education. So that is what the first author is discussing. Then he is talking about how the India's new education policy should be framed. The first, let us discuss about the education. The education setup for India, which you are following presently, it started in 1920 when the British government established this board called Central Advisory Board for Education. This Central Advisory Board for Education was started by the British government when they implemented the Montagu-Chelmsford reforms. You will study about Montagu-Chelmsford reforms in the modern India. After that, they passed this Government of India Act 1919. After this Government of India Act 1919, they established the Central Advisory Board of Education, and they also constituted a committee under the University of Calcutta. This University of Calcutta committee also gave recommendation to constitute this body, and that's why they constituted this body. Why I'm discussing this in detail? Because this can be asked as a potential question in the preliminary also. So Central Advisory Board for Education was created. It was acting as a advisory body to both the then Governor General led central government and the provincial governments in the British India. And it was also coordinating the initiative with respect to education with respect to both the union government and the state government. Then, so after Montagu-Chelmsford only, we had a proper federal structure in the India's governance. So that in order to ensure the education sector moves well with the federal arrangements, they started the Central Advisory Board for Education for as an advisory body for both the union government and the state government and coordination among all. After independence, we continued this body with the union HRD minister as the chairman. Union HRD minister as the chairman. After 1950, he became the chairman, and this body continued to function. It consists of members from all the state government. So, in order to hear their voice also, and it is going to advise the Ministry of HRD. It will advise the Ministry of HRD with respect to formulation of education policy, with respect to how the education should be maintained. So that is the role of this body. Please note down, it can be asked in the prelims examination also, because we passed the new education policy. In 1950, when our constitution was brought in, education was kept in the state list. Education was kept in the list 2. List 2 means state list in the 7th schedule. So 7th schedule means the Constitution Assembly decided that education should be the sole realm of the state government. Union government should only be the facilitator, and state government should be the sole authority who is going to handle the education. But we also established a Ministry of Education in the union government. Even though education was in the state list, there was a Ministry of Education at the union government level. That is, now we are calling it Ministry of HRD. So this Ministry of HRD, now again they have renamed it back to Ministry of Education. So this Ministry of HRD was just taking care of setting the aims of the education policy. What is going to be the aims for the education policy, and it was also setting the standards for the nation building. So this was the main functions of the Ministry of Education. Then it was setting the common educational standards for the entire nation. So that was its role when it was established. Now what happened? This body also started to set up advanced institution in the professional fields. What are the advanced institutions like IIT, IIMs, and IASC? So such national level institution, advanced institution with respect to professional fields. Then we had for medical education, they set up aims to take care of the medical education. So they were setting up advanced education institution for higher studies at one end, and they were also they started a board called CBSE. Why they started a board called CBSE? In order to ensure that education is given to all the central government officials offspring. So the central government officer might be posted in somewhere other parts of the India. For the education of the children of those officials, they started CBSE, because then state government was the sole responsible entity for the education. So they were establishing the school. Central government established the CBSE school only for the central government officials. They started Kendriya Vidyalaya and Navodaya Vidyalaya in order to provide education. So they were providing high investments with respect to the IITs, IIMs, and IASC, and they also brought in new practices, and they set these standards. So it was only providing the standards. That's it. The role of the education was over for the with respect to union government. State government took care of the entire education. They set up the state boards and the state board school, metric schools, and they were regulating it. But in 42nd Amendment Act, there came a twist. Indira Gandhi government took this education from the state list, and they transferred it to list 3. List 3 is concurrent list. So education went into the concurrent list, and now union government got equal power with respect to state, with respect to legislation with education sector, and that paved way for centralization of education, which we are protesting against now. Now Tamil Nadu is recently protesting against the centralization of education with respect to NEET examination or national education policy, because they are telling that education is being centralized and states power is being taken. And the first step was laid after the 42nd Amendment Act, when the education was moved into the concurrent list. Why they moved education into the concurrent list? Because of the anti-Hindi agitation. The government, after the recommendation of the Kothari Commission, they established a 3-language formula. A lot of state governments, in the education was in the state list, they never implemented, especially the southern states never implemented the 3-language formula in order to protect their own language. So since they are so in order to reduce the authority of the state governments, they converted it to concurrently. So that was a brief background now, and the centralization of education was firmly laid. Foundation was firmly laid by the 42nd Amendment Act. In post 1991, what is happening? In post 1991, in the LPG era, we liberalized and privatized all the sectors. So privatization also took place with respect to education, and the emergence of the private players starting to come. The private schools and private colleges started to emerge after the liberalization era. In the late 80s and the early 90s, a lot of private schools and private colleges came, and that provided a new path for the urban middle class to take the education. So private sectors came in post 1991 period only. So what they said was, like any other commodity, education also can be sold to the people as a business, and we can also provide quality with it. Okay, so till late 1980s, education was considered to be the sole role of the government. We had union government and state government taking care of it. Now a new entity called private schools and private colleges started to come after the liberalization era, where they started selling the education for money. But the quality of education also improved with respect to the private players. So this led to formation of 3 systems of education. So now we are having 3 systems of education. So that is the author is telling. One is the central system. So central system consists of what now? So because of various evolution, we are having 3 systems now. One is the central system, which runs the CBSE board for school, and 2 school chains. One is Kendriya Vidyalaya for the central government officials' wards, and next we are having Navodaya Vidyalaya. Navodaya Vidyalaya aims at providing quality education in residential school for the entire public. So in Tamil Nadu, we are not having Navodaya Vidyalaya, but Navodaya Vidyalaya is there in all the states except Tamil Nadu. So because of our opposition for implementation of 3-language formula. Next, central government is running advanced professional institutes, like we already discussed, like IIT, IIM, and IASC. Then we are having Indian Institute of Travel and Tourism Management. There are various central institutes which is taking care of the professional education, and we are having AIMS, all those things. Then we are having a state system where we are having state board and matriculation system. State board and matriculation system, which is taking care of the secondary education. Senior secondary education is taken care of by the state boards, and we are also having a lot of state universities. Like for example, we are having Anna University in Tamil Nadu, which is under the control of the state government. It is not under the control of union government. It is coming under the realms of the state government. See, now central government is investing on the central advanced professional institutions like IITs, where they will be investing, and state governments are having their own professional institutions where they are investing, and they are operating, and they are implementing their welfare scheme. So reservation policy with respect to Anna University is different from IIT, because in IIT there are in Tamil Nadu we are having 69% relation. In IIT there will be only 49% reservation, plus now newly emerged economically weaker section. So state governments can implement their own wish with respect to that. Now when the government is so there are because of this 2 problems are emerging. What are all these 2 problems? One is central government is having a lot of resources, and hence they are able to provide high investments, which we saw here. Central government is providing high investments to these institutions like IITs and IIMs, and it is improving the quality. But the state governments, already state governments' finances are crunching. We'll see why the state government finances are crunching in the next editorial. So because of that crunching finances, state government is not able to spend money for the state institutions. So what is happening? The funding which is coming for the state level universities is reducing. So this is one issue which is going on with respect to the difference with respect to the investments. Another issue which is emerging is with respect to the new education policy. Governments wants to centralize the education. They wants to even take control of, union government wants to take control even of the Anna University. So that is what the reason Anna University issue which was going on with respect to institution of eminence, and new education policy wants to centralize the education, and it will further take away the state's power to implement. That's why if you could see state government with respect to NEET also we are facing the same issue. So with respect to NEET, what happened? State government already had a lot of medical colleges. central government is having medical colleges. But what is happening now, because of implementation of the NEET, the state government runs medical colleges seat is being diverted for the all India quota, and state government students are not being properly represented there, and state government cannot implement this 69% reservation policy. Why going to 69%? They couldn't even implement the OBC reservation with respect to the post graduation. So that was the plight with respect to the NEET and centralization. So this will hamper the state's progressive reforms which they brought in the education sector. Whatever reforms we as a state government brought will be affected because of the new education policy. So that is what the author was warning about. And the third system, see, state system also took care about the vernacular education. That is the education providing in the local languages, like Tamil medium education in both the schools and college levels. Next, we are having a third system called private system, where this private system is providing internationally accredited school like ICSE. We are having ICSE board which provides education at international levels, and we are also having various international level universities which is having international collaborations and taking care of the education in the private sector. So these are all the three systems which have evolved now. So now we are having an education system, and this education system we are having three systems. So why I wanted to discuss means, since we government launched the new education policy this year, we can expect a question from education this year. Already we discussed the editorial with respect to education and new educational policy in the different perspective in the previous video. Please see about that. Then also we discussed an editorial regarding the ranking framework of universities, how the universities are being ranked and issues there. So that also we discussed. See that, because education related essay or education related mains question is very much possible now. So now why I'm discussing the three system is, if they are asking with respect questions related to issues with respect to education system, we will be writing it in only one way, that is issues in the primary education, issue in the secondary education, issue in the tertiary education, that is higher education. So this is how we will be writing the answer. So there is another perspective also to write the answers: issues with respect to central system, issues with respect to state system, and issues with respect to private system. So this is also another perspective to write answers. So if you are having a lack of points, what you can do, you can write 3 points with respect to three. See, if there is a 15-mark question, you can write 3 to 4 points with respect to this perspective on primary, secondary, and tertiary. Another 3 points also you can generate with respect to these three systems. So you can write 6 points. Easily you can write 6 points with respect to both supportive, with respect to both the positive or negative. So that is why. So this editorial is providing us multi-dimension with respect to education. So that is what I wanted to mention, why I am discussing the evolution and the three systems. So now what happened? In order now, the aim of the government with respect to policy making must be to integrate, that it must be to integrate and channelize all the three sectors. There must be a certain integration and there must be standardization. So that's why central government should provide the standards. That is an accepted thing. So but it should not interfere with respect to the autonomy. So our policy making must aim at integrating the all the three systems. For that we brought RT Act. See, RT Act aimed at integrating the first and second system with respect to primary school level. So RT Act integrated the primary school level in the first system, because for both central government and state government, both the central government and state government should implement the RTE with respect to their own school system, whichever they are following. So it integrated these two systems at primary school level. So what the new education policy is bringing now, new education policy 2020 is bringing, they are extending this right to education provision with respect to the higher senior secondary school also. They are extending it till the 12th standard. Okay, so that is the add-on addition. But this author is talking about a problem here. What he is talking is, see, we brought in this right to education, but still we have not completely implemented right to education in the fullest efficiency. So instead of extending the right to education to higher education sector, so that is a very much needed reform only. But this is not the time. You first implement the right to education at the primary school level to the fullest level, then focus on the going for extending it to the secondary level. So that is what the author is talking here. Okay, the next level of integration which is being brought with respect to three systems is accreditation norms. Union government through Ministry of HRD, it is having various independent entities like AICTE, Medical Council of India. All these institutions, they are regulating. University Grants Commission also we are having. These three entities are regulating and providing accreditation for the education at the higher secondary level. Common education accreditation at higher secondary level for all the three. So these are all the two things which we brought in order to integrate it, but still the integration is not at a full pace. Still we are having so many confusions with respect to integration. Overall coordination has become very unmanageable. So this is one criticism which we can write. And marking standards, is very much different. This marking standard means what is the mark given for the each candidate when they are evaluated in the examination. One college might evaluate in a different way. See, we are having college A and college B. See, this marking issue is a very big issue which is not being talked about many people. We should have a common standard marking system all over the India that only will ensure equality. Let us consider two people, two colleges, college A and college B, and two guys called person 1 and person 2 studying in these two colleges. Now college A will have a certain group of people. They will be giving the marks to the person A with respect to certain regulations. College B will be having a certain marking guideline, and they will be having certain set of characters who will be correcting the answers in the examination. Imagine both A and 1 and 2 are studying the same course. They are studying BA Economics. So let us assume they are both are studying BA Economics. Even if they are studying BA Economics, let us assume that they both are having equal intellectual level and equal level of the education and equal level of intellect. Even though they are having everything equal, the marking standards might vary. Student 1 may get more marks and student 2 may get less marks for the same intellectual level because of the differences in the marking standard with respect to teachers in both the schools. So we should have a common understanding with respect to how it is being marked. So imagine one evaluator in the UPSC, he is giving marks in a certain way, and another evaluator giving in the mark in a certain way without a standard, then that will lead to inequality. So person 1 would have got 85 marks and person 2 would have got 75 marks with respect to same knowledge level. Now what will happen? This person 1 will be getting more opportunities and person 2 will not be getting opportunities. So we have to standardize the marking system also. How a person is evaluated, that should be standardized, and no one is talking about the standardization of marking system. So that should be brought in. And inequalities is on the rise. Inequality is on the rise in the many streams. One with respect to this inequality in the education, we can see in many levels. One with respect to union government and state government. Just now we discussed the funding. IITs are getting more fund, but Anna University is not getting more because state government is not having fund to fund the Anna University. So this disparity is being created. Another disparity which is being created by the rich and poor divide. Another disparity is there with respect to caste discrimination, with respect to accessing the education. So this rich and poor divide, and another discrepancy with respect to people studying in the private school, people studying in the public schools, government schools. So there is various inequality existing in the education system. So all these things should be standardized. So this is equalities on right. So our steps should be addressing such things. So new education policy should aim at coordinating the all three levels, improve, bringing the marking standards and reduce the inequality. So that should be the ultimate aim. Okay, but instead of focusing on the regulation in that area, it is not focusing on standardizing the education. Instead, it is focusing on bringing in uniformity at the functional level. Functional level means how the college is being governed and who is funding the colleges and what are all the regulations with respect to admission it is followed in the college. In the functional areas, they are trying to bring in the uniformity with the new educational policies, and they are not bringing in the uniformity with respect to areas which we discussed. That is the main problem with respect to the new education policy. We all know positive points with respect to new education policy. If you want a good criticism, this is one good criticism. Functional uniformity is not the solution. We have to bring in uniformity with respect to uh, issues which is causing the institutional decay, rather than centralizing it. We have to focus on these areas. These areas are causing the institutional decay, and we should focus on reducing the inequalities instead of bringing the functional uniformity. That is what the author is mentioning. And there were two beautiful quotes in the editorial which I wanted to mention. Please note down this quote and write if you are writing any answer or any editorial with respect to education. For education to fulfill its social role, it must respond to specific milieu in which the young ones are growing up. The education system should be relevant with respect to the area where the person is studying. If a person from Tamil Nadu is going to school, that person should learn about the Tamil Nadu history. If a person from Pondicherry is going to school, that person should learn about the Pondicherry history. So that is how it should be relevant to the own area where he is belonging to. So that is what this quote talks about, and this quote is about the policy making with respect to education. We must ask what kind of human being and what kind of society we want before we draft a policy in education. When we are drafting a policy in education, what we have to keep in mind? What kind of human being which we are going to make and what kind of society we want. So these are the two beautiful quotes which we can quote in the main examination. Please make a note of it. Now let us go to the next editorial. The next editorial is talking about the fixing the rules of the economy. This is one of my favorite editorials, which we have discussed in the recent time because it is in my realm of economy. But still, it is talking about one of the important dimension of the economy. If you could note, UPSC question is also getting too technical in the recent times. So this editorial is talking about one technical issues with respect to the economy point of view. So this editorial is written by Mr. Arun. Mr. Arun is an author and he is a writer with respect to economy. So he has beautifully discussed about one important economic issue which is there in India. So he is discussing about the relationship between the economic output and the labor productivity. So what is the relationship which is happening between the economic output and the labor productivity? That is what the author is mentioning. If you could see, in 2017 we had a question. What it was talking about the role of investment rate, role of investment rate in the economy, investment rate to in order to provide the growth, how investment rate lead to growth, and discuss various other indicators which is having direct relationship with growth. So investment rate, so this was the question. So likewise technical questions are also being asked in the economy. So this is one technical area, like how investment rate is leading to growth. Another area which is leading to growth is economic output. Providing economic output is a labor productivity. So labor productivity is another indicator which is providing the growth. If you could see the 2017 question, you will be understanding it. So please go and refer the question and you will understand the relevance of this particular editorial. So the author is here is discussing about the relationship between the economic output and the labor productivity. So author first talks about the income investment cycle. So income investment cycle means, see, recently government of India brought in two reforms. They wanted to ensure to market to play the role. So that's why they brought in this farm laws. Government wanted to bring the farm laws because farmer should not be constrained with APMC. He can sell he should be able to sell anywhere in India. Similarly, government brought in this labor code. We all know labor code of 2020 is also another area. So this is also another important area from where the mains question can come. So this labor code is aiming at bringing in the flexible labor laws. So in economic survey also, the author talked about the flexible labor laws and its importance with respect to the entrepreneurship growth. So this flexible labor laws should be brought and the labor market should be freed. So in order to free both the farm market and labor market, government brought in two important laws. In order to ease the farm market, we had farm laws. In order to ease the labor market, we brought the labor codes. But author is providing one comparison. Why government is wanting to bring the flexible labor laws? Because what a company, see, we are having a firm here. When the firm is one of the main factors of production, like land, labor, capital, and entrepreneurship, labor is a very important factors of production. So providing wages is a important expenditure which the firm does. See, in order to make the prices, in order to bringing the competitive prices, this labor, see, land should be available easily. Labor should be available easily for the firm. So availability of labor should be easy. At the same time, the firm should be able to fire the labor easily. So the labor law should be flexible such that the wage law should be flexible such that the firm can easily hire or fire a labor in order to ensure a competitive price. Only if a competitive price is there, firms can function. So our labor laws reforms were brought in order to reduce the labor costs. Because of the various social security being provided, the labor cost is increasing, and in order to reduce the labor cost, we government brought in this labor code in order to reduce the labor cost. See here, what the author is telling: if you are hiring and firing at free will, what will happen? See, no doubt our ease of doing business will improve if you bring in this labor code. No, and if you remove all the labor laws and we are not giving any protection to labor, surely the firms will be benefited and the firms output will grow, no doubt. But people will be losing their jobs if they are doing hiring and firing at their own whims. What will happen? This labor will become unemployed. They will be losing their jobs. If they are becoming unemployed, to whom they are going to sell the goods and services? This firm is spending on these basic factors of production to in order to manufacture these goods and services to sell it to whom? Sell it to a consumer. Who is a consumer? Like they have discussed in Velekaran movie, every employer is also a consumer. காலையில் 8 மணி நேரம் எம்ப்ளாயர் வீட்டுக்கு போனோன்னா அவன் கன்சூமர். தட்ஸ் வாட் சிவகார்த்திகேயன் will tell. So if you are firing this labor, who will be your consumer? To whom you are going to sell? So in order to boost the investments, this is the logic of the author. In order to boost the investments, in order to boost the GDP growth, you should also protect the labor. The labor should also be protected and labor laws should also be protected. Then only you can boost the investment. Only if the labor is getting good only if the labor is getting the good income, only if the income are high, See what the government is thinking, that since the income levels are high, wage rates are rising, we have to regulate the wage rate so that it is competitive for the employers to provide good wages. So government is against increasing the wages now. So indirectly by bringing in the labor code, it is against the increasing wages. Only if the wages are increasing, what will happen? They will be spending their money to buy the goods which the firms are selling. Without there not being any labor, to whom the firms will sell the goods. So that is the first argument which the author is giving, and this is a very important argument where we can quote in the mains examination or interview or anywhere. Without adequate incomes, people cannot become a good market. See why all the investments are coming to India and China. Why all the foreign companies are coming to these two nations? Because they are having a huge market. They are seeing India as a huge market. Then when you can sell the goods and services, you can sell the goods and services only if the people are having money. When will people have money? Only if they are having jobs. When they will have good jobs and good money, only if their wage rates are high. Only if the wage rates are high, India will be a good market. If India is having 100 crore people with no jobs, then to whom the firms will come and sell? So that is the author is telling. So there is a linkage between investment and income cycle. Only if the incomes are high, investments will grow. Okay. Inadequate growth of incomes is one of the main reason for this slump in investment. So we have to focus on increasing the incomes of the labor and not on curtailing it. Okay. So labor law should be flexible with respect to in favor of labor, not in favor of the firms. So that is what the author is telling. When government is bringing a labor law, to whom it should be favorable? We are having firm and the labor. The labor law should be favorable for government is telling that it should be favorable for firms so that ease of doing business is increasing. Ease of doing business increases to whom they will be selling if the labor is not getting wages. So it should always be in a such a level that it is balanced equally between both the firms and the laborers. The labor law should be flexible both for the firms and for the labor. It should be flexible for the firm, at the same time it should protect the labor. That should be the aim of the labor law. So this is what the author is talking. If I'm drawing such diagrams, you can note such diagrams, because you can also draw such diagrams when you're writing the answers. So only if there is good income levels, then only there will be good investment cycle. So that is the income investment cycle which the author is talking. We would have also studied about the relationship. We will also studied about the wage inflation spiral. Wage inflation spiral in economy. Only if the wages are high, that will lead to inflation. If the inflation is high, then the people will be asking for higher wages. So again, the wages will rise. Again, if the wages is rising, that will lead to inflation. If the inflation is high, again the workers will be asking for high wages. So this cycle should be maintained. So always, only if the wages are progressively rising in the economy, that economy will face the growth rate. So increase in the labor wages is very important for achieving the growth rate, and you should be focusing there. So that is what the author is telling in the first point. Second point, what he is telling, see, government brought the farm laws. Government brought the farm laws because in order to regulate the trade of the commodity, in order to regulate the trade of the farm commodity. Now they are bringing in the labor code in order to regulate the trade of labors here. Here again, the government is seeing the labors as just a commodity. You should not commodify the human beings. Labor is a human being. Human rights must prevail about any economic consideration. So when government wants to ease the labor laws or to make flexible labor laws, that flexible labor laws should not be against the interest of the labor. A labor should be seen as a human being. Market should be free for the labor's hiring and firing. So that is what the government is telling with respect to implementation of the labor code. But here again, they are seeing a labor as a commodity. You can see agricultural rice or wheat as a commodity, but you cannot see labor as a commodity. With respect to farm laws, the market reforms might work, but with respect to labor laws, it should be always pro-labor. Then only there should be protection of labor. Then only it will work. So that is what he is talking about. Commodification of human beings should be avoided with respect to bringing in the labor reforms. The third one, the author is talking about productivity. So let us understand the relationship of productivity by again discussing a very important concept. So pay attention carefully. So author is talking about one important thing called productivity here. This productivity rise is very important. Labor productivity is very important for economic growth. If there is high productivity, then we'll have high GDP growth. So increasing productivity is very important for the growth. So how productivity is being calculated is calculated by output by input. Okay. So with respect to labor productivity, if you are calculating labor productivity, what will be the output? Let us consider output as, let us consider you can calculate labor productivity at two levels. One for entire India, another for a particular firm at firm level. At India level, what will be the output? Output will be GDP of the entire nation. And what would be the input? Input with the entire labor force. With the entire labor force in the Indian economy, that is people who are employed between the age group of 18 to 59, what is the GDP you are producing? So that will be the productivity formula for the nation level. With respect to firm level, what it is going to be? The firm's output. What that is the total outputs of the firm or total revenues of the firm with respect to number of workers. Okay, so productivity, then it will provide us the per capita contribution to output by each labor. So at the end of the day, productivity formula is going to give us the per capita contribution of each labor with respect to output of a company. Like for example, if a company is producing 10 car, a car company is producing 10 car, each car's value is 10 lakhs means, then the company's output is 1 crore. It is providing 10 cars with 10 lakhs each means it is providing an output of 1 crore. Then it is employing, let us assume it is having 300 laborers. It is providing 1 crore output with 300 laborers. So what is the productivity? Productivity will calculated by 1 crore output with 300 labor. Then what is the output per individual labor? So that will give the value for productivity. So this is the basic concept of productivity. Now, in order to improve the output, in order to improve the, improving the productivity is very important for GDP growth. In order to improve the productivity, what you have to do? In order to improve the productivity, government should either focus on increasing the output. Only if the output is increased, we can improve the productivity. That is the output of each firm. See, if output of, now we can also calculate the productivity by adding all the productivity of firms. Total productivity of the nation can also be calculated by adding the productivity of all the firms, each and every firms. So if you want to improve the productivity of the entire economy, you can improve the productivity of each and every firm. How you can improve the productivity of each and every firm? Either by increasing the output or by reducing the, either by increasing the denominator or by either by increasing the numerator or by reducing the denominator, you can increase the value of the output. Here, we cannot reduce the value of the denominator because workers will lose the job. So always the denominator should be held constant. Then only the economy will work well. So if you are not changing your denominator, then what should be your aim? Your aim should be to improve your numerator. So in order to improve the labor productivity, now what are all the options we are having? Again, I'll write the relationship. In order to improve the labor productivity, now we are having two options. Input here means workers. So we cannot reduce the workers now. So our only aim will be to improve the productivity is to improve the output. How you can improve the output? We cannot reduce the number of laborers. Then we can, by investing on the various technology and machinery, what we can do? We can improve, we can augment the capacity of the labor. If you are investing on the technology and the machinery in a company, then you can augment the productivity of the labor, then you can increase the productivity of the each and individual labor, and you can increase the output. So this is one route. Okay, another route. So all the developed nations which is having huge capital, they follow this methodology. What they will do, they will try to provide investment. All developed nations, they will have huge capital. With a huge capital, what they will be doing, and in all the developed nations, the population is also very less, so and labor supply is also very less. So what they will do, they will be doing the capital investments, and they will be investing in the technology and machinery and other support in order to boost the productivity of individual labor so that the output is boosted. So this is how they will be improving the labor productivity in the developed nation. What the developing nations are doing? Developing nations cannot are not having enough capital. Developing nations are not having enough capital to improve the technology or invest in technology. So what they are doing, instead of investing in the technology, they are trying to improve the skills of the labor. They are trying to improve the skills of the labor, and two, they are ensuring the economy. What is ensuring the economy means? Economy here means it is about Sikkanam. So it should be feasible. So your economy of prudent spending of money, prudent spending of resources. Your spending of money for the resources should be prudent. In Tamil, they will say Sikkanam. So if you are spending the resources prudently, and if you are improving the skills of the individual laborers, and if you are improving the capacity of individual labor, easily you can increase the output. So our aim, in order to improve the productivity, our aim should not be at reducing the workers, because they will lose their jobs. So instead of reducing the workers, our aim should be to augment the workers either by investing capital and through technology, or by providing skills and prudent investments, we can improve the output. Okay, with continuous supply of skills, what will happen? The labor's capacity to work will improve, and they will be doing so. Developed nation, capital intensive nation can do this. India is a developing nation. We are not having enough capital, but we are having huge supply of labor. India can focus on labor intensive investment. So these are all called as labor intensive investment. So India should focus on investing in such sectors which are labor intensive, instead of focusing on capital intensive. That's why labor intensive sectors are way forward for India's economic growth. That's why all the authors will say MSME is again labor intensive. That's why government is focusing on boosting the MSME. So this is what the author is talking now. Now, if you could see, improvement of productivity is key for economic progress. Capital-rich enterprises and country, by adding more machines and technology, they supplement the capacity of the labor and they improve the productivity. Labor-rich countries like India, instead we are not having enough capital, so we have to focus on skill development and culture of continuous improvement. This culture of continuous improvements is also culture of continuous improvements means improving the capacity of the labor by focusing on skilling him. So that's why government of India is launching Skill India mission. So one successful model of this two. See, for India to develop, we have to focus on the two, not on the one, because we are not having enough capital. So in order to do this, we are having a reference called Japan. So Japan followed this model called total quality management. This total quality management of Japan considered, we already saw about depreciation. All the capital assets are depreciating. All the capital assets undergo depreciation. Depreciation means they will undergo wear and tear. We have studied that in economics. But human beings are appreciating assets. Each and every worker in a company, worker is not at all depreciating. Worker is always appreciating. Appreciating means when you are providing proper skills to a worker, when a worker is getting proper experience, what will happen? The worker's ability to work will improve. If you are working an object for a long period of time, that will undergo wear and tear and depreciation. But if a worker is working for a long period of time, that worker will improve the experience. And if you are improving the skills of the worker, then the worker's capacity will boost. That's why workers are considered to be appreciating assets. So we have to consider the workers as appreciating assets by improving their own ability. Because the workers are having tendency to increase their own ability if we treat them with dignity. So workers, if they are treated with respect and dignity and provide proper environment to learn new skills, then workers can be converted as appreciating assets, which will benefit the entire economy. So this was the model followed by the Japan, which is called as total quality management model, and many engineering graduates would have studied this. But instead of, like what we said, in order to boost the productivity, remember the simple formula: output by input. In order to focus the productivity, we said that we should not touch the workers part. Workers should be constant. We should focus on improving the output through enhancing the capacity. That's what the author is telling. Either follow this or this. That's what the author is telling. But what our nations and what the each and every firms in India are doing, they are, in order to boost the output, they are simply firing the laborers. If at all a company is facing any loss, instead of focusing on how to bring back the loss, they will fire the workers. With respect to COVID, also same thing is happening. We faced a lot of lockdown because of COVID, and economy is slowing. And what all the companies are doing, they are firing the laborers. So all the firms are following the lazy strategy of hire and fire. They are doing the denominator approach instead of focusing on the numerator. So each and every company should follow numerator approach of improving the outputs by improving the capacity of the labor instead of focusing on the denominator. That is called as denominator approach. Instead of focusing on the denominator and firing the workers. So this is what the author is talking here. So when you are writing an economy answer, use such word. You have to use this with respect to labor, use such keywords called hire and fire, denominator approach of improving productivity, total quality management model of Japan, human beings are appreciating assets. Only if you are putting such keywords in your mains answer, your mains answer will be technical, and this will provide you the edge with respect to the others. And author is also talking about the concept called small is beautiful concept. It is given by E.F. Shoemaker. So E.F. Shoemaker gave this concept called small is beautiful, which says that industrialization of a nation should be with the intermediate technology. A developing nation, India is a developing nation. When a developing nation wants to develop or wants to improve the GDP growth, it should industrialize it with respect to intermediate technology. What is this industrialization with respect to intermediate technology? It is also called as IIT. So not IIT means not the colleges. Industrialization through intermediate technology. That is called as IIT. So what is this? Let us consider in developing nation, what will be the technology level? Let us assume I'm giving an example that this developing nation is using a technology of 1 rupee. Let us consider a developing nation is using a 1 rupee technology. By meaning 1 rupee technology, what I'm telling, they are using low level of technology. Low level technology and high labor. This is the case of developing nation. So what will be with respect to developed nations? See, development and population are linked. That's why developing nations will be highly populated, developed nation will be lower populated. Developed nations are having high technology. So for that we can say it is 1000 rupees technology. Developed nations will be having 1000 rupees technology and they will be having high capital. Since they are having high capital, they are able to invest on technology. They are having 1000 rupees technology. So an aim of a developing nation in order to industrialize is to provide employment to all these labors. So they should not reduce the labors. Instead, what they have to do, they have to focus on the quality of this low technology. The nation should industrialize with the intermediate technology, not by this nation should not aim at bringing this high technology here and doing the development. They should focus on this low technology and they should invest more on this 1 rupee technology in order to ensure the high labor productivity. But what we are doing in the name of foreign direct investments, and what all the nations are doing it, instead of focusing on the intermediate technology or 1 rupee technology, through foreign direct investments, we are allowing the developed nations high technology and high companies here to enter into the developing nations. So this developing nation will bring in the 1000 rupees technology to India. If they are bringing in this 1000 rupees technologies to India, this 1000 rupees technology is capital intensive, because see, if India is employing 1000 people to do the work with 1 rupee technology, they can produce the same output with the 1000 rupees technology. They can just employ 100 people and provide the same output. Because this technology is coming here, because capital intensive technology is coming here through FDI, what is happening? This is providing employment, for 100 people. In India, 100 people are now getting employed. With the help of this 1000 rupees technology, they are able to provide the GDP. Okay. But what is happening in developed nation, they are not having labors, but in developing nation we are having huge labors. So rest of the 900 people are not getting jobs now. These 900 people who are not getting jobs, what it is happening, just because of bringing in the high technology from foreign countries, instead of focusing on the technology of that same land, these firms are getting affected. They are losing the jobs because giants are entering the local market. So local firms in developing nations cannot face their competition. Now these 900 people are losing jobs. If the 900 people are losing jobs, either they are going to informal sector. So what is happening? These 900 people are either going to informal sector, or they are going to gig economy. Gig economy means like Uber or Swiggy, those kind of jobs, or they are becoming unemployed. So this is threatening the conditions of labor. So a developing nation should not focus more on such kind of high technology. They should focus on their own technology and develop with that. So that is what the author is telling. So this is called as small is beautiful model of E.F. Schumacher. We should industrialize with intermediate technology. So note down this word. This kind of keywords you have to mention in the answer. So this is leading to an issue of dual economy. In dual economy means one side, this in a same developing nation, what is happening? We are having huge economic development. At the one side, we are having economic development. India is facing economic development for the past 30 years. At another side, we are also having huge unemployment. So this is leading to this dual economy of high technology, high GDP output, at the same time low technology and high unemployment. These both are coexisting in the same developing nations. So this is giving rise to dual economy. So note down such keyword. Okay. So this is what the author is telling. So we have to focus on industrialization with intermediate technology in order to achieve the growth. And we should also be focusing on, and there should be a social contract. What is this social contract? We are having firms, we are having labors, so we are having consumers. See, actually labors and consumers are same sector only. Now just assume. Okay. Instead of seeing it as consumer, let us take it as society. So author is using the word called society only here. We are having society. So there should be a contract between the labor and society. See, so labor is providing, through his hard work, the labor is providing the goods and services to the society. In turn, society should provide a proper environment to work, proper environment and proper conditions to work. Okay, so that should be the social contract here. And firms and society, again, firms are providing goods and services, and for that they are earning the profits here. And the relationship between the firms and labor should be in such a way that it should create a balance between the flexibility of labor laws for firms and and at the same time it should protect the labor's rights also. So such kind of a social contract should exist, and ultimately this society is going to determine what kind of firms are there in the economy. So this society should encourage those firms which are able to provide goods, quality goods and services at good prices, at the same time provide good conditions of work for labor. This society should lead the movement, and they should demand more for the firms. So like society should come forward, and they should give preference to those firms who are like how we are giving preference to those firms who are eco-friendly. Likewise, those firms who are treating the labor well, those kind of firms should be chosen by the society. So that is what the social contract the author is talking about. So note down all the keywords, and note down all the words which I mentioned, and importantly note down all the diagrams which we discuss. So these kind of diagrams only we can quote in our mains answers. So the next editorial we will go. The next editorial is about the financial capacity of the states are getting weakened. So if you could note recently, the financial capacity of the states are getting weakened in the fiscal sphere. We already discussed about this, but in this editorial, we are getting a new perspective. It is written by Mr. Krishna Gowda. Krishna Baire is the former minister of the Karnataka government. So he's a minister from the Karnataka's cabinet, and he is writing the editorial. So he's writing the issues with respect to which the state governments are facing. See, a state minister who was in charge for agriculture and rural development, he is talking about the problems faced by the state government. So that is the authenticity of such editorial. That's why we have to read the editorials. So here, what the author is mentioning is that the fiscal capacity of the state is at a very huge crisis because of the various actions taken by the union government. The recent actions of the union government are in such a way that it is affecting the fiscal capacity of the state governments. So what author is starting this article by quoting this thing: state drive the majority of the country's development program. So country's development, who is leading the development program of the government means state. See, we are having union list, state list, and concurrent list. All the most responsible things are there in the state list, like agriculture, and we are having factories. Then we are having health. So such kind of things are there in the state list. So state is having the responsibility. Even education is was part of the state list. Now it is in the concurrent list, but still state is playing a major role. All the most responsible sectors are there in the state list. Okay. So union government. So all the issues which a individual, what is needed for an individual's development? Individual must need food. That food is coming from agriculture. Individual need education, that is coming from state government. Individual need good health, again that is provided by state government. All the most responsible things are provided by the state government. So states drive the majority of the country's development program. Each an individual for his own livelihood, welfare and security, he is dependent on the state governments only. So if such a huge responsibility is there with respect to state government, then state government should also have strong finances. Only if they are having strong finances, they can invest all the money for the welfare of the individual who is dependent on the state for his livelihood, welfare and security. Okay. But what is happening now? State finances should be strengthened in the nation, but in India, the state finances are getting weakened. So that is a major problem which we are facing. So how the state's finances are getting weakened? Author is telling through 4 routes. Through 4 routes, union government is weakening the finances of the state government. Union government is weakening the financial capacity of the states through 4 routes. Let us understand what are all those 4 routes now. The first route is Finance Commission. Article 280 of the Constitution talks about the establishment of Finance Commission for sharing the, see, we are having union government. Quickly, I'll say about Finance Commission. We are having union government, state government. State government is having responsibility, but low finances. Union government is having less responsibility, but more finance. So what union government is collecting a lot amount of taxes. Union government is collecting more taxes when compared to state government. So when union government is collecting the tax, this union government is collecting the tax with the help of the people who are in the state. And so since it is dependent on the taxes which is being paid by the people from the respective states, it should allocate the money collected. Union government should allocate the money collected in the tax to the state government also. because state governments are having huge responsibility, union government, what they have to do, they have to share the taxes which they collected with the state government. In order to determine how much shares should be shared between whatever shares collected by the union government through income tax, or we are having various tax, income tax, corporate tax, and so from all these tax, what should be the devolution given to the state government? It is determined by the Finance Commission under Article 280 of the Constitution. So Finance Commission determines the shares. So till 13th Finance Commission, the share was given was 32%. 14th Finance Commission said that the share should be 42%. So from till 13th Finance Commission, the actuals were greater than the projection. So in 13th Finance Commission said that 32% of the total taxes collected, if 100 rupees is collected, 32 rupees should be given to state. So that is what the 13th Finance Commission said. So 32% devolution was suggested, but the devolution which went to states were higher than what the Finance Commission said. Finance Commission said 32% should go, but what the state governments received were net, they received 35 to 38%. If you could see from first Finance Commission to 13th Finance Commission, always see these are all the actuals. This is projections given by the Finance Commission. What actually, how much amount of actual money which was given by the union government to state government is the actual that is actually the actuals, and this is the projections. Projection was 32%, but actual money devoluted to the state governments was always higher than the whatever projections given by the Finance Commission. This used to be the norm till 13th Finance Commission. In 13th Finance Commission, 32 was stipulated, but 35 to 38% of the devolution took place. But 14th Finance Commission increased the devolution to 42%. When you see it from the external level, it is, you can note that it is increasing by 10%. But after the implementation, this was for the period of 2015 to 2020. In 2015 to 2020, each year the union government should share 42% of the taxes they collected to state government. So this is what the Finance Commission said. But if you could see what is happening, for the 14th Finance Commission, we have come to 2020 now, and the 14th Finance Commission's time is over. If you could see the 14th Finance Commission performance, projection was greater than the actuals. The actuals is trailing behind the projections. We projected that 42% money will be given, but it is 14% less. Even though the state union government said that it will share the 42% of the money, but actually it shared 14% less. So actuals was less than the projections. So how much less? It is almost tune of 8 lakh crores. 8 lakh crore money is being removed. So this is one major blow. Second major blow is with respect to cesses. So Article 271 of the Constitution allows the union government to implement the cess, and it also states that this cess and surcharge, money collected by the cess and surcharge, I hope that you all know about cess and surcharge. This money collected in the cess and surcharge will not be distributed to states. Just now I said that when union government is collecting the taxes, the tax will go to the divisible pool of money. From this pool, they are giving the share to state government with the help of Finance Commission. So, but what Article 271 says that whatever money collected through the cess and surcharge will not go into this divisible pool, but all the money imposed through the cesses will be taken exclusively by union government. This is also given in the article. So, whenever union government wants money, they will be imposing the cess and surcharge, and they will be imposing the cess and surcharge, and they will be increasing their revenue. This is what was happening. But what is happening in the recent times, in the past one decade, if you could note, the number of cesses are increasing. The number of cesses and surcharges are increasing at one side. Since the cesses and surcharges are increasing, all the money collected will be going only to union government. And moreover, they are replacing certain taxes. Earlier, they were collecting certain taxes. Government is replacing certain taxes into cess. They are converting cess and taxes into cess. Conversion of taxes into cess will lead to what? Conversion of if the tax is collected, that money will go to this pool, and from this pool, through Finance Commission recommendation, they will provide to state government. Now state government will receive the money. Now what is happening? Because the union government is converting a lot of tax to cesses, like they converted the wealth tax into surcharge. They converted the wealth tax into surcharge, and they converted the petrol the taxes petroleum cess. Since the taxes are being converted into cess, union government is still collecting the money, but they will keep all the money. They are not on the obligation to share that money with the state government under Article 271. So union government is using this Article 271 and increasing the cesses and replacing the taxes with the cesses. Because of this, whatever money the state government would have got, now they are not getting the money. But if you could see from the consumer point of view is still paying the wealth tax in the form of new surcharge. Still the consumers are paying the petroleum prices, but instead of money going to the state government, it is going to central government through cess. So because of this cess, the number of cesses increase. So in the total gross tax revenue, in the total revenue, whatever revenue the union government is getting, earlier they used to give 9.3 percentage through cesses. Now the share of the cesses in the gross tax revenue has increased to 9.3 to 15 percentage. So this article is all about noting the facts. We all know that finance commission devolution is falling, cesses and surcharge are increasing. Now, but if you write this 9.3 to 15 percentage of the gross tax revenue, this figures in your answer, this will improve the authenticity. If you write this in the 14th finance commissions, when the question is being asked with respect to finance commission, if you write this 14% less devolution took place, that's why states are not having fund, then this fact is going to give authenticity to your answer and get more marks. Okay, everyone know the thing what is happening, but these facts are going to add value to your answers. Next, implementation of GST. We already talked about the GST. GST took away all the powers, all the fiscal powers the state government had through pooled sovereignty system. Earlier, state government had the power to implement the VAT, and union government had the power to implement the excise duty. Now we converted everything into GST. So we created a model called GST where the implementation of the VAT, imposition of the VAT and excise, everything was merged into one tax. Now state government lost its power to implement the VAT. So ability of the states to expand the revenue is being constrained because state government no more can levy their own indirect taxes and get the money. Now they should be dependent on the GST council for any share. They should be dependent on the union government for any share now. So that is being the sorry state of affairs with respect to the taxation powers of state after the implementation of GST. And we all know the compensation crisis which is happening with respect to GST. Union government is reluctant to provide the compensation to the state government. Union government promised that when GST was implemented in 2017 till 2022, union government promised that they will be levying a cess called compensation cess. See, this cess was levied exclusively to give money to state, so they'll be sharing this money to state. The union government said that they will impose a compensation cess on luxury and sin goods. Luxury and sin goods. Luxury goods means car or flights. Sin goods means tobacco. So those kind of goods. So already government was imposing. Now they have converted that into compensation cess. So the union government will impose this compensation cess on GST 28% slab and collect that money and provide compensation to state government whoever are considering that they are losing the revenue. So this was the thing. But what union government is doing, union government is not providing the proper compensation to state which they deserved. Because of this crisis, state governments are having a deficit of 1.2 lakh crore. Okay, they are asking the state government to borrow this money. But what state governments are telling? State governments are telling that union government to borrow. They are asking union government to borrow the money, and you continue this compensation cess even after 2022. You continue the compensation cess even after 2022. Each year we are getting 94,000 lakh crore in the 94,000 crore in the compensation cess. So you borrow the money and give it to state governments now, and whatever money you are getting in the compensation cess, once the lockdown is over in 2021, everything will be normal, economy will be fine, the compensation cess will be collected in the usual way. When you are collecting the money through compensation cess in the future, you use that money to pay back the loan. Instead of asking state governments to borrow the loans, union government can do this. They could have borrowed the loans and they should have given it to state governments. To settling the loans, they could have used the money from the compensation cess. But instead of taking the responsibility, they are asking the state governments to borrow, which is further constraining their ability to borrow money. And also, through Article 200 and 282 and Article 272 and 282, union government used to provide grants to state governments. Grants and grant in aid. These grants in aids are determined again by the Finance Commission. In the recent period of time, after in 14 Finance Commission said that 42% of the grants will be 42% of the devolution will be given. On one side, union government gave the 42% devolution. On the other side, what they did, they started to cut the money which they gave for centrally sponsored scheme. Centrally sponsored scheme means it is shared both by central government and state government. These schemes are implemented by state governments, but the central government is also sponsoring it. Central government is also giving the money. So that is centrally sponsored scheme. Now what is happening? The share of money which the union government gave in the centrally sponsored scheme, they started to reduce that. Because of that, state governments are not getting enough money. And the discretionary grants to Article 272 and 282 is also now getting reduced. So because of all these four reasons, the state government are losing money. Through Finance Commission devolution, they are losing because the projections are higher, actuals has falling below the projections, the more cesses are being implemented, hence the amount of share with the state government will get is reducing. GST has taken away the entire financial autonomy of the states, and now central government is reducing the share in the centrally sponsored scheme also. Because of all these three things, state government's financial capacity is being affected. So this is the point which the author is talking in this editorial. See, we all know this point. Any UPSC aspirant might know these 4 points, but knowing these 4 facts is very important when you are writing the answer. If you are quoting this fact additionally, that is going to provide you the marks. So note down the facts. So because of all these because of all these 4 reasons, almost 20 to 25% fall in the revenues of states. So because the revenues of the states are falling, states are borrowing more money. Because, and in GST crisis also, union government asked the state government to borrow 1.2 lakh crore. If state governments are borrowing more money, they are having the burden in the future. They have to pay back in the future, and they have to pay the interest payments. If they are just spending the money in the interest payments, when they will be spending for development? Just now I said that state government are taking the major role in the development. They are providing the livelihood, welfare, and security for the citizens at the first place. Now, if you are spending that money for interest payments, when they will spend the money for development? And union government should understand one fact, that states are forefront of development. So only strong states only will lead to stronger India. So that is the ultimate philosophy of federalism. So now more federalistic turn should be there with respect to the Indian Union. So the next editorial, the last editorial which for the day, is about the market dictates and blow against the equality. This editorial is written by the High Court lawyer, Madras High Court lawyer Sujit Patsarthi. He talks about the polity issues very well, so don't miss out any editorial which he gives. Here in this article, he is talking about how the GST levy on the mobility aids. Mobility aid means the wheelchairs or the aids which are being used by the crutches or the walking sticks used by the differently abled citizens. Differently abled citizens are using wheelchairs. So they are using the wheelchairs, they are using the crutches, they are using various other mobility aids. So, but union government, what they have done, they have started to levy GST on these mobility aids. Earlier, the GST levy was 18%. After all the protests, they reduced it to 5%. Now, people are demanding that, see, differently able persons are ordinary vulnerable sections of the society. So this area is relevant in paper 2 also. Ordinary, they are vulnerable sections. These vulnerable people, they are using it for walking, and they are using it for reading. Why? They are also using aids for reading and hearing purposes. They are using it for hearing. So if you are levying the 5% tax, walking, reading, and hearing is a basic thing which a human should do. That is, we are not paying taxes for walking. But if you are asking us, the differently able people, to pay 5% tax for walking, means for this wheelchairs, means it is highly against the principles of equality which is enshrined in the Article 14, and it is against the interest of the vulnerable sections. So GST should be implemented. GST money should be collected, but we should not be implementing it on the differently able people. They are already vulnerable. They are already suffering in their lives. So that is what the author is talking here. So why this is happening? Let us talk here. So before going into this editorial, author. So what happened? In Nipun Malhotra case, this Nipun Malhotra filed a case in the Supreme Court, and it asked him to give order. And Nipun Malhotra asked the Supreme Court to pass order in order to exempt the mobility aids, this 5% mobility aids, from GST. Okay, when this case was filed in the Supreme Court, what Supreme Court said in the judgment was, see, GST is a thing which is done by GST Council. Anything, any commodity, whether it should be there in GST or not, is decided by the GST Council, and this GST Council is not a normal statutory body. It is a constitutional body established under Article 270A of the Constitution. So it is a constitutional body. This constitutional body is determining which goods should be there in the GST. So it is under the total realms of this constitutional body, which is an executive body. So me as a judiciary, we Supreme Court as a judiciary cannot interfere there, and it will be against the principle of separation of powers. So this was the Supreme Court said. So it asked the petitioner to go to GST Council and put the petition in the GST Council. So here you can note this one thing, even though it is not relevant for the thing which we are discussing, this case name is very important. Why? See, in last year also UPSC asked the question with respect to separation of powers. So how the separation of powers is being dealt in the India. So this was the question they asked in 10 mark in the 2019 mains. You won't see the mains paper. So when the question is being asked, and also we are having this topic called separation of power in the syllabus. So if a question is with respect to separation of powers or with respect to governance system, we can quote this. In Nipun Malhotra case, Supreme Court talked about the separation of powers and didn't interfere in the affairs of GST Council, because it is judiciary and GST Council decision is executive decision. So Supreme Court wanted to maintain that separation of power. So that is what, and what Article 50 says. Article 50 says that judiciary and executive should be separated. So Supreme Court upheld this Article 50 and it upheld the principle of separation of powers by not involving in the ambit of the GST Council. So you can use the name of this case in the answers when you are writing. This will enhance the your mark. So that's why I wanted to mention the case name. See, what is the purpose of the taxes? The author is telling that the purpose of the taxes is always about distributive justice. The purpose of the taxes is about distributive justice and it aims at the welfare. Okay. So, and the distributive justice means it is imposed on the rich and to collect the money and to spend on the poor for the welfare of the poor. So that is the main aim of the taxes, and taxes are used for the development of the nation. And these taxes are also having heavy bearing effect on the society also, how society is arranged. Because if there is more indirect taxes, then see, direct taxes are levied only on people who are earning more money. It is only imposed on rich people, but indirect taxes is imposed on all. If a person is going to, if a person is going and buying biscuit, he will have to pay GST. Indirect taxes, even a poor person, if he is going and buying biscuit, he should also should pay GST, and a rich person also should pay GST. So GST will not differentiate between rich and poor. Only direct taxes will differentiate between rich and poor. So whether a government is imposing more direct tax or indirect tax also determine how it is affecting the poor of the nation. So it is having, it impinges on the individual's freedom. It is impinges on the principles of equality and equity also. So that's why since taxes are impinging the individual's rights, it is also affecting the right to life of an individual. So, and hence the Supreme Court could have interfered in this case under Article 21 and they should have given the judgment, but they refused to do so, citing the separation of powers. So that is one side good thing. But if you could see in Canada and Colombia, in recent judgment, both the Supreme Court of Canada and Colombia said that the taxation is affecting the fundamental rights of the people. So anything with respect to taxation, we can provide the judgment. So this is what they gave in the judgment. But what happened now? Now, our Supreme Court denied it, but still it is a good thing because it upheld the separation of powers. Two conflicting points we are discussing. Note down both the points. Both the points will be helping in our answer writing. Now let us come to the issue of GST and the indirect tax credit. GST was implemented in India in order to convert India into a common market, and in order to convert the in order to implement a consumption tax. And GST also was considered to be a transformative tax. So these are all the words in order to praise the GST. So note down these words. No need to explain that. Let us focus on the main area. Government is reluctant to take away this 5% GST implemented on the mobility aids. Why it is reluctant to take away this 5%? Because it is considering that it will affect the indigenous manufacturing growth. So let us understand why state government is reluctant to take away the 5% levy on the mobility aids. When the people confronted the, sorry, I'm telling state government, it is union government and GST council. Union government and GST council, why they are reluctant means, they are reluctant to take this 5% from the mobility aids means they are telling that if we are taking away this 5%, it will affect the indigenous manufacturers. So who are these indigenous manufacturers? Indigenous manufacturers of mobility aids. Those people who are manufacturing wheelchairs, they will be affected. How they are affecting? Because of the input tax credit system. Input tax credit system. So what is this input tax credit system? Let us understand. This input tax, let us take an example. Let us take an example that, see, we are having a firm which is manufacturing the wheelchair. For the manufacturing of the wheelchair, this firm is buying aluminium. They should have bought this aluminium. They should have bought the tires for the wheel. Only then they can make a wheelchair. Okay. Let us assume that the cost for making this particular cost for buying this aluminium and tire and the entire cost for manufacturing took 500 rupees. Okay. And while buying this aluminium and tire, this firm would have paid the GST for buying this aluminum. When this firm is purchasing aluminum, they would have paid the GST for aluminum. When this firm is purchasing the tire, they would have paid the GST for procurement of inputs. A firm will procure the inputs and raw materials. Whenever they are procuring inputs and raw material, for that also they would have paid GST. Assume that this firm would have paid 100 rupees for buying this aluminum. Now they decided to sell this wheelchair at 600 rupees. Just now let us just assume, okay, 600 rupees. Let us just assume that it is 600 rupees. Now they are selling it at 600 rupees. If they are selling it at 600 rupees, so now let us assume that they are selling it for 600 rupees. If a cost of the good is at 600 rupees and we know that GST is 5%. If GST is 5%, let us assume this wheelchair is 600 rupees, just an example. If the GST is 5%, then 5% in 600 is nothing but how much? 10% in 600 will be 60. So 5% will be roughly 30. So let us assume that they are imposing a GST of 20%. Let us assume that GST is 20%, not 5%. If the GST is 20%, then a GST of 120 will be levied. So total cost will be 720 rupees. So a GST of 20%. Earlier it was 18%. So I'm assuming it does 20%. So if 20% GST is levied, it will be costing almost 120 rupees additionally. So what this firm is doing, this firm is collecting GST of 120 rupees from the consumer, and it is also paying the GST of 100 rupees to the aluminium manufacturer. So this aluminium manufacturer would have collected this 100 rupees from the firm, and this aluminium manufacturer would have paid the GST to the union government. Similarly, this firm has got 120 rupees from the consumer as GST. So this firm has to pay 120 rupees for as GST to the government. Now imagine the system of input tax credit is that since the person is buying the goods in order to do the value addition and sell it again, government decided to provide back this input, the tax which the person which the person paid for the input items. See, this person already paid 100 rupees. This 100 rupees already, if he is paying 100 rupees GST in manufacturing process, means this 100 rupees will also be added up as the in the manufacturing cost, and it will increase the price of the goods to 600. Again, if he is levying GST when he is selling the goods, means again another GST is levied for 120 rupees. For the same wheelchair, at one level GST is levied at 100 rupees, at another level the GST is levied at 120 rupees. So two times the GST is being levied. This is called as cascading effect. In order to stop this cascading effect only, we brought in this input tax credit system, where the government, now what they will do, this firm is paying 100 rupees. Now this firm has received 120 rupees. Instead of paying this entire 120 rupees, the firm can pay only 20 rupees to government, keeping the whatever money they paid for the input. So government will give back this 100 rupees to the firm, whatever they paid for the input. Now the firm, instead of paying 100 rupees as the tax, they will pay only 20 rupees as the tax. Now because they are paying only 20 rupees as the tax, the price of the good will be only 520 rupees instead of 600. If the price of the good is reduced to 520 rupees, then the GST will be imposed on this money and the price will be competitive. Only if the prices are competitive, that will be advantageous. Only because of this GST system of 5%, since they are imposing GST of 5%, this manufacturer is able to claim the input tax credit. If you are not providing any, if you are not imposing any GST on the wheelchair, then this particular firm can never claim the input tax credit. If they are not claiming the input tax credit, then what will happen? The cost of the good will increase. If the cost of the good will increase, that will affect the consumer. This is what the argument given by the government. If the input tax credit system is not being received by the firms, then the cost of the commodity will increase. If the cost of the commodity will increase, then it will affect the indigenous manufacturing, because the demand for the goods in the international market will be reduced. So initially it was 18%, then they reduced 5%. Exempting will disincentivize the domestic manufacturers because of the input tax credit system. But this is a lame excuse given by the government. See, you cannot bring in this argument with respect to goods which is being consumed by the vulnerable sections of the society, that is differently abled citizens. So use this terminology, differently abled, instead of writing physically challenged or disabled. Okay, author has mentioned the word disabled, but don't mention this word. So now let us come here. So you cannot use the same argument. Already government imposed the 12% GST on sanitary napkins. The sanitary napkins which the women use for the menstruation purposes, After severe protests which took place, government exempted the sanitary napkins from GST. So, like how government exempted the sanitary napkins from GST without considering about the development of the domestic manufacturers for the welfare of the women who are suffering. Similarly, for the welfare of the differently abled people who are suffering, government should also remove the 5% GST. That is what the author is ultimately arguing. Okay. If at all you want to incentivize the domestic manufacturers, you find other ways to provide the exemptions. Okay, find other ways to provide the exemption, and you also provide. See, GST system is being launched by the central union government. You provide incentives to local manufacturer. Ask the wheelchair makers not to pay the input tax. You say that the wheelchair makers, when if a particular wheelchair firm is buying aluminium for making a wheelchair, if you are buying aluminium for making a wheelchair, then GST is exempted. Impose such norms. You exempt the aluminium from GST if the particular manufacturer is buying aluminium to make the wheelchair. You bring in such exemptions to provide the support to manufacturing sector. Don't provide this excuse of levying 5% of GST, because if you are providing exemptions to the firms separately, only union government will be providing the exemptions. But if you are levying 5% GST, consumer had to pay it. This differently able person has to pay it. So instead of levying GST, provide exemptions to other route for the firms. You provide exempt them from income corporate taxes. You use such exemption. You provide them subsidy for manufacturing. You provide subsidy. You provide exemption to other routes instead of levying GST. This is what the author is telling, because at the end of the day, tax are levied in order for the distributive justice, in order to ensure welfare of the economy, in order to ensure the equity. In order to ensure equity, in Article 14 also it is mentioned that we have to maintain equity. So in such a cases, we can exempt the person. Constitution under Article 14 allows rational classification of the people and provide the equity concept. Hence, we have to provide exemptions in order to ensure equity. That is what the author is ultimately talking in this editorial. So thank you guys. We came to the end of the video. Today it was a long video. So it was a long day, but still we discussed very important points, and I hope that all these points will be beneficial for you. Please note down all the points, revise all the points. Only if you do proper revision, this initiative will be effective. When this initiative will be effective? Only if you do the proper revision, only if you note down all the points which I say and you do the revision. Okay. So do regular revisions. And I also set a strategy for revision also. How you can revise means, you can see the live video on Saturday and you can see one previous video on Sunday. Keep Saturday, Sunday for editorial. See one live video today and see another live video. See another previous video tomorrow. By this, you can effectively revise the concepts we discussed. Do regular revision and prepare for the mains sincerely. Thank you.